Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You know, I was sitting here, and whenever Senator Graham questions witnesses, it's always, I'm an old prosecutor too, and he is quite the cross-examination expert, and he does a withering cross-examination of witnesses when he's trying to make a point. And I started to feel sorry for you, Secretary Panetta, and then I thought for a minute about who you are and what you have done in this nation's capital, the service you have provided at the White House, at the Pentagon, at the CIA, in Congress, the years and years of valuable service that you have given to this country. And then I realized you'd be just fine. You didn't need my help with Senator Graham's questioning at all. And I thank you for those years of service. And General Dempsey, I want to clarify that you have said today that once the attack occurred, you were moving forces.
Yes.
All right. Now, I want to ask, is anybody here from the State Department in the audience? If you're here from the State Department, would you raise your hand? Okay, we got one hand from the State Department. I say that because I have a history that I have been involved in doing oversight on embassy security. This history goes back to 2009 when the contracting subcommittee that I chair did a hearing on the embarrassment of Armor Group and their ability to protect the embassy in Kabul. After that hearing in 2009, Armor Group was let go. And then there was a February 2010 hearing of this committee on security contracts in contingencies. And it was a sensational hearing, and I mean that in both senses of the word, because there was information that came out at that hearing that if I were at the State Department, I would want to absorb it and get busy. Now, a report based on that hearing was issued in a classified nature weeks before September 28th, but the public report came out on September 28th. And in that report, it said that local Taliban was working with warlords to provide guards and weapons for use in EODT's contracts. It came out that they were failing to adequately investigate the guards' previous employment, which resulted in the companies hiring individuals who'd previously been fired for sharing sensitive information, security information, with Taliban warlords. Failure to appropriately vet guards, some of whom, according to U.S. intelligence reports, may have been involved in anti-American activities. Now, all that information was out in a classified way several weeks before September 28th, and was out in public September 28th. Guess who the State Department gave the contract to for guarding Kabul on September 29th? EODT. And then, of course, they were fired for failure to perform because they could never perform adequately. Now, then they wanted to litigate. Now, meanwhile, guess who's still guarding? We still had Aegis guarding, which was another problem contractor at Kabul. Now we still have Armor Group. Then we did a contract with Aegis. Now, Aegis finally took over this summer. Now, I urge you all to take a look, and you don't have to, Secretary Panetta. You can read a novel. But General Dempsey, I hope you all look at the article that was written January 17th in Foreign Policy magazine about Aegis at the Kabul embassy and the problems that have already surfaced about them. Now, I have talked to Patrick Kennedy about this, and his staff has come over and briefed my staff that they believe Aegis is doing just fine. The end of this, I've got to tell you, the umbrella contract for high-level security at embassies is a $10 billion contract over 5 years. And it's tasked out to 8 different. I won't go into the IG report on the background checks that have been done on the 8. But the people that are at Kabul now, it's $100 million a year we're paying them. I can't believe we can't use the Marines in these situations. Somebody has got to do a cost-benefit analysis. All that I told you, can you imagine the amount of money that we've spent fooling around with these contractors that weren't getting the job done? Can you imagine the time we've spent on this and the money that has been spent? I really would like, General Dempsey, for you to talk about the cost-benefit of putting Marines on our embassies when we are in contingencies, and why in the world this is so hard for us to get our arms around, and where is there the analysis that shows me we're saving any money?
Well, Senator, just to react briefly to what would be necessarily a much longer conversation, the Marines are not, that's not their role. That's not what they do for the nation. Could it be at some point? Potentially. I'd hate to think we'd make that decision based on cost, but it would require a longer conversation.
Well, I guess my point is, God forbid we have something happen at Kabul. But if we did, a hearing like this would look like child's play. If you look at the history of what's gone on in terms of the Guard force at Kabul. And you know, I want to be reassured that private contractors are working in these situations. But when we do a $10 billion umbrella with the ability to do tasks out for Pakistan, Iraq, Afghanistan, Jerusalem, and it's costing the kind of money it's costing, and we know that these embassies are going to be targets, it just worries the heck out of me that we're going to be in another one of these situations where it's uncomfortable to talk about hindsight instead of foresight. So I would really like you to look at the highest levels, at a macro level, because the War Contracting Commission said we should not be using private contractors on embassies when we have this kind of heightened security risk. And I really think it's time for us to do a gut check on whether or not we should, in fact, be relying on inept local militia or inept contractors. And
Senator, let me just commend you for the work you've been doing with regards to these kinds of contracts and the quality of individuals that are involved. I mean, the reality is that that the State Department, as a matter of fact, my old agency, rely on these kinds of contracts for security. That's a reality. Anything you can do to try to make sure that that these individuals are well trained, do the job, and that we're not wasting money would be extremely helpful, because right now we depend a great deal on that kind of contracting.
is there a way we can get back to the point, Secretary Panetta, that we're not relying on a contract force to do what is inherently a government function? I mean, it's almost like I hit a brick wall every time I talk about this. Why is it that this has to be a contract function? Why can't we use the best trained military in the world to protect our most valued assets in our most dangerous places?
I mean, I think the reality, just just speaking with regards to my old agency, is that we're deployed in so many areas that you can't expect the military to pop up there and provide that kind of protection. That they've got to get security on site and get it from the very best people that they can contract with. That has become the reality that we're dealing with.
Because of the need to integrate into the community, and therefore, if you have military, it stands out. Well, I can see that particularly under the aegis of the intelligence agency.
That's right.
But for embassies, it seems to me that this shouldn't be such a hard reach. Thank you both. Thank you, General Dempsey, and I hope you enjoy the California weather.